World War I changed everything. Millions fought, millions fell, empires crumbled, and the world was never the same. Today, we bring their stories back to life, restored and animated with AI. But which moment will hit you the hardest? The courage? The tragedy? The sheer scale of it all? Comment below. And if you want to see more history reborn, hit subscribe. This channel is a one-man mission, powered by AI and your support. Let's step into the past together. The Battle of Verdun, the longest and one of the bloodiest battles of World War I. In 1916, the Germans aimed to bleed France white through relentless attrition. But the French defenders, though outgunned, held their ground. This charge from the trenches captures the desperation of men advancing into a storm of artillery and machine gun fire. Over 300,000 soldiers perished here, yet Verdun became a symbol of French resilience. By 1918, chemical weapons had turned warfare into a nightmare. This German machine gun team, masked against poison gas, epitomizes the industrial brutality of the war. Gas attacks caused agonizing deaths, and soldiers lived in constant fear of the invisible killer. The masks they wore were as essential as their weapons. The skies above the Western Front became a battleground for aerial supremacy. These British Sopwith camels, agile yet deadly, played a crucial role in halting Germany's last great offensive in 1918. Pilots dueled in fragile wooden biplanes, where survival often depended on skill and luck. Often overshadowed by the Western Front, the Balkan theater was just as fierce. Here, Bulgarian forces pushed toward Monastir, modern-day Bitalia, clashing with Allied troops in brutal mountain warfare. Bulgaria's alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary stretched Allied resources thin, prolonging the war in the south. The war reached deserts and ancient lands. The Ottoman Empire, allied with Germany, relied on diverse forces like this Arab Camel Corps. But Arab nationalism, fueled by British promises of independence, would soon turn the tide, leading to the legendary revolt led by Lawrence of Arabia. One of the war's greatest sieges, Przemyśl, a fortress city, held out for months against Russian forces before falling in March 1915. The collapse exposed Austria-Hungary's weakness and marked a rare Russian success, though their gains would soon crumble under German counterattacks. The spark that ignited the war. Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. Their deaths triggered a cascade of alliances, plunging Europe into conflict. A single bullet changed history. Or fever, or dread. As Germany declared mobilization, crowds in Berlin gathered to read the news. Many cheered, believing victory would come swiftly. Few imagined the years of slaughter ahead. This moment marked the point of no return. Russia's entry into the war was met with patriotic fervor. Here, Tsar Nicholas II addresses crowds in Petersburg, unaware that this war would doom his empire. Within 3 years, revolution would sweep him from power. Belgium's resistance stunned the world. Though neutral, it refused Germany's demand for free passage. This improvised armored car, Sava, symbolizes Belgium's desperate but heroic defense. Their stand bought crucial time for the Allies and earned Germany global condemnation. In the early days of the war, the Russian Empire struck deep into Austro-Hungarian territory. This triumphant entry into Lviv, then Lemberg, in 1914 was a fleeting victory, celebrated as proof of Slavic unity against the Habsburgs. But the city would change hands multiple times, foreshadowing the brutal back-and-forth warfare of the Eastern Front. Improvisation was key in the Balkans. Serbian troops, outnumbered and outgunned, relied on sheer determination. This perilous river crossing symbolizes their struggle, retreating through mountains in 1915, decimated by disease and enemy fire, yet refusing to surrender. Their resilience became legendary. The frozen hell of Sarikamish. In December 1914, the Ottomans launched a disastrous winter offensive in the Caucasus. Ill-prepared for the brutal cold, thousands froze to death. The Russians, dug into these positions, repelled the attack, But the battle foreshadowed the suffering still to come in this forgotten front. The war in the desert. Ottoman forces, stretched thin across vast fronts, fought to defend their empire against British advances. Here, in the scorching sands of Mesopotamia, disease and thirst killed as many as bullets. The Siege of Kut, 1916, would become one of Britain's most humiliating defeats, until they returned with vengeance. Trench warfare bred deadly innovation. This sniper's Periscope Rifle allowed him to shoot without exposing himself, a small but grim evolution in killing. Snipers terrorized the trenches. A single bullet could end a life at any moment, turning no man's land into a hunting ground. Deception meant survival. Both sides mastered the art of camouflage, hiding machine guns in fake trees, ruins, or, like here, natural terrain. A single concealed gun could wipe out an entire attacking wave. The war had become a deadly game of hide and seek. Mountain warfare at its most brutal. Russian artillery, like this Howitzer, pounded Austro-Hungarian positions in the freezing Carpathian passes. But the terrain was as much an enemy as the opposing army. Supply lines collapsed, and men died of exposure in the snow. To bolster the Western Front, Russia sent troops to France. Here, General Lokhvitsky inspects positions in Champagne alongside French officers. These men fought far from home, only to see their own country collapse in revolution a year later. The Somme, synonymous with futility. After months of stalemate, British troops advanced under a creeping artillery barrage. Some gains were made, but at a horrific cost. This photo captures the moment before the chaos. Men stepping into the unknown, where survival was a lottery. Russia's forgotten sacrifice. The Lake Naroch offensive was a disaster. Thousands died in freezing swamps to divert German forces from Verdun. These exhausted prisoners tell the story. Poorly equipped, led into slaughter, yet still fighting for a crumbling empire. By 1917, the Russian army was unraveling. This lone soldier, desperately blocking deserters, embodies the collapse of discipline after years of slaughter. Hunger, exhaustion, and the promise of revolution turned men away from the front. The Tsar's war was ending, but the people's suffering was not. The fall of Riga marked Germany's last major victory on the Eastern Front. With Russia descending into chaos, German forces seized the city in a brutal offensive. But this triumph came too late. The Western Front was crumbling, and time was running out for the Kaiser's empire. A fight for survival. As the Ottoman Empire accused Armenians of aiding Russia, these volunteers held van against overwhelming odds. Their resistance delayed the genocide, but not for long. When Russian forces finally arrived, they found a city scarred by massacre and defiance. A symbol of ingenuity and desperation. With few proper airfields, Russia's fragile planes were hauled to the front by any means necessary. This makeshift solution couldn't mask the empire's technological lag. By 1917, most Russian aircraft were obsolete, outclassed by German aces. The man who dragged the Ottomans into war, German Admiral Souchon, commanding the Goeben and Breslau, bombarded Russian ports in 1914, forcing the Sultan's hand. His actions locked the Ottomans into a war they couldn't win, sealing the empire's fate. The Falklands, 1914, Germany's global ambitions shattered. After Admiral Spee's squadron was annihilated, British sailors rescued drowning enemies. This rare moment of humanity contrasted with the war's naval ruthlessness, where victory went to those with the biggest guns. The Anzacs' baptism by fire. These diggers, far from home, faced horrors unknown in Gallipoli. Chemical attacks, endless mud, and industrialized slaughter. Their masks hid fear, but their resilience helped turn the tide in 1918. Germany's last gamble. During the spring offensive, this A-7V tank led a desperate push to break Allied lines. But like the Empire itself, it was clumsy, slow, and outnumbered. For all its steel, it couldn't stop the coming defeat. Terror from the skies. This 120-ton monster fired shells so high they reached the stratosphere. Parisians heard no warning, just explosions. A psychological weapon, it killed few but foreshadowed the future. wars where no city was safe. Italy's line in the sand. After the disaster at Caporetto, these troops anchored the last defense against Austro-Hungarian forces. Their stand at the POWs in 1918 became a national rallying cry and the prelude to Italy's final victory at Vittorio Veneto. These faces, they weren't just soldiers or statistics. They were people who laughed, loved, and feared just like us. So I'll ask you, which story here made you pause? Was it the Armenian defenders holding Van against impossible odds? The Russian deserter, torn between duty and survival? Let me know in the comments. I read everyone. And if you want to see more forgotten history reanimated, subscribe and hit the bell. It's just me and AI working to keep these memories alive, and your support fuels this channel. Until next time, stay curious. The past is watching.